The idea of humans standing on the rings of Saturn sounds like something from science fiction, but imagining it helps us understand how strange and beautiful our solar system really is. Saturn's rings are one of the most iconic features in space. When seen through a telescope or in images from spacecraft like Cassini-Huygens, they look like solid glowing bands wrapped perfectly around the planet. But the truth is far more fascinating. Saturn's rings are not solid surfaces at all. They are made of billions of pieces of ice and rock. Some pieces are as small as grains of sand, while others are as large as houses. If humans somehow managed to land on the rings and survive for 24 hours, the experience would be unlike anything ever felt on Earth. Arriving on the rings. First, reaching the rings of Saturn would already be a massive challenge. Saturn is about 1.4 billion kilometers away from Earth. Even with advanced spacecraft, the journey would take many years. When astronauts finally arrived, they would notice that the rings stretch incredibly wide, but are surprisingly thin. In many places, the thickness of the rings is only about 10 to 30 meters. Instead of landing on a flat surface, humans would step onto a floating field of icy rocks slowly orbiting Saturn. Because Saturn's gravity is strong, but the rings are in orbit, astronauts would experience a strange environment similar to very low gravity. Walking normally would be almost impossible. Each step might send a person drifting slowly between chunks of ice. To stay safe, astronauts likely need magnetic boots, cables, or a platform anchored to larger ring particles. Without these precautions, a single push could send someone drifting into the darkness of space. A view like no other. One of the most breathtaking parts of living on the rings of Saturn would be the view. From the rings, the planet itself would dominate the sky. Saturn would appear enormous, filling half the horizon with swirling clouds of yellow, gold, and brown. Its powerful storms and banded atmosphere would slowly move beneath the observer. Unlike standing on Earth where the sky is blue, the sky above Saturn's rings would be completely black. Stars would shine clearly everywhere because there is no atmosphere to scatter light. Another amazing sight would be Saturn's many moons. Large moons like Titan, Enceladus, and Rhea would move slowly across the sky. Titan, Saturn's largest moon, would appear as a glowing orange world covered in thick haze. Seeing multiple moons drifting around a giant planet while standing on a floating ring of ice would feel almost unreal. The silent environment. If humans spent 24 hours on the rings, one of the most noticeable things would be the silence. In space, there is no air to carry sound. Even if huge chunks of ice collided nearby, astronauts would hear nothing unless the vibrations traveled through their suits or equipment. Imagine watching massive pieces of ice slowly bump into each other in total silence. The only sounds would be the faint hum of life support systems inside the spacesuit. The temperature would also be extremely cold. Saturn is far from the sun, and temperatures around the rings can drop to about minus 180 degrees Celsius. Without advanced spacesuits and heated habitats, survival would be impossible. The danger of ring collisions. Although the rings may look peaceful from a distance, they are actually a dynamic and constantly moving environment. Billions of particles orbit Saturn at high speeds, often tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. Astronauts standing on the rings would need to be extremely careful. Small particles can drift into their equipment, and larger pieces of ice might collide nearby. Even a small object traveling quickly could damage a spacesuit or spacecraft. Scientists believe the rings are constantly changing. New particles form when moons or icy bodies break apart, while others slowly fall toward Saturn over time. This means the ring system is not permanent. Some studies suggest Saturn's rings might disappear in tens of millions of years. The strange gravity experience. Gravity on Saturn's rings would feel very unusual. While Saturn's gravity is strong, the rings themselves are orbiting the planet. This creates a balance where objects remain in orbit instead of falling straight down. For astronauts, this means they would feel partially weightless. A gentle jump could send someone floating slowly above the ring particles. Moving around would be more like swimming in space than walking on land. This low-gravity environment could also affect the human body. Muscles and bones weaken without gravity, and spending even 24 hours there might feel strange for astronauts used to Earth's gravity. The changing light of Saturn. During the 24 hours on the rings, the lighting conditions would constantly change. Sunlight reflecting off the icy particles would create bright, shimmering patterns. The rings themselves are highly reflective, meaning they can glow brilliantly when sunlight hits them. At certain angles, Saturn could block the sun completely, creating a giant planetary eclipse. The rings would suddenly plunge into darkness while the edge of Saturn glowed with a thin line of sunlight. Moments later, sunlight would return, sparkling across millions of ice particles like a cosmic ocean of diamonds. The end of the 24-hour visit. After spending a full day on the rings of Saturn, astronauts likely would feel both amazed and relieved to leave. The experience would be beautiful, but extremely dangerous. Living there permanently would require massive floating structures, advanced protection systems, and constant monitoring of moving ring particles. Still, the memory would be unforgettable. Few places in the solar system could match the surreal experience of standing on the rings of Saturn, watching its moons glide across space while billions of icy fragments orbit beneath your feet. If humans ever travel that far in the future, spending even 24 hours on Saturn's rings might become one of the most extraordinary adventures in the history of exploration. It would remind us just how vast, mysterious, and beautiful the universe truly is.